through the Old Testament with the narrative lectionary that takes us now through the story of the kings of Israel. We've heard a lot about Samuel the last few weeks and how Samuel was a prophet sent by God to anoint kings, to anoint Saul, to anoint David. And David was, of course, the greatest king in Israel's history. We often look back to the reign of David, but David wanted to do one thing that he couldn't, and that was build a temple. For that, we come to David's son, Solomon. God told David that it wouldn't be him, but it would be his son who would finally build the temple. And we're going to start reading scripture today with 1 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 through 5, that begins that story. It's actually kind of a long story, so we're going to kind of skip through parts, but if you're interested, they have a lot of description about exactly what this temple was made out of and exactly how it was built. But it starts off in verse 1 of chapter 5. King Hiram of Tyre sent his servants to Solomon when he heard that they had anointed him king in place of his father David. For Hiram had always been a friend to David. Solomon sent word to Hiram saying, "You know that my father David could not build a house for the name of the Lord his God because of the warfare with which his enemies surrounded him, until the Lord put them under the soles of his feet. But now the Lord my God has given me rest on every side. There is neither adversary nor misfortune. So I intend to build a house for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord said to my father David, your son, whom I will set on your throne in your place, shall build the house for my name." So this is the beginning. Solomon goes from here and he starts gathering all kinds of materials, amazing, expensive materials, and craftsmen and workers, tens of thousands of workers. He makes this a project of the entire nation to build a temple for God. And it has got to feel fantastic. For Solomon, for the people, coming from a time when there were enemies on every side, when Israel was in a politically weak spot, and now they get to be in a time of peace, a time of wealth and growth. Solomon is famous not only for his wisdom, but also for the incredible wealth that he and the nation had. So this is the golden age. These are the glory days. They have been through the wilderness, they've been through wars, they've been through the period of the judges where every so many years a new threat would arise and God would have to send a judge to save the people. And things were rocky with Saul and then David, but now this is it. And they spent 7 years building this temple with over 30,000 people. And if you read through these chapters, they describe all of the furnishings, all of the pieces of equipment for rituals, all of the incredible labor that went into this. And then, imagine the moment where the temple is completed and it stands before the people and a crowd gathers and there is a parade of religious leaders who come wearing all of their really fancy religious garments, and they are carrying on long, long poles in between them the Ark of the Covenant with winged angels on top of it. And you know what's in that Ark of the Covenant. Inside, the only thing is the 2 tablets on which Moses wrote the 10 Commandments. So this goes into the temple, into the holiest of holies, where it causes God to dwell in a cloud that covers everything with darkness. Imagine the celebration. Imagine the joy. Imagine the noise at all of this happening. So I'm getting really excited about this. 1, because I'm a nerd and I get so excited about the Bible. But 2, because I don't know if you know this, but Covenant for the past 11 or so years has been working on a building campaign of its own. About 11 years, right? And we have done capital campaign after capital campaign after capital campaign. And friends, we are this close. We are this close to being done, completely paying off all of that debt, which was over $4 million. And I got to tell you, we are talking weeks. We are talking weeks of before we get to celebrate this fully. The faithfulness of the people who have given to this campaign, the generosity, has been incredible to see. So I want us to feel the same kind of celebration at God inhabiting a place that has been faithfully built over many, many years. And I'm so excited. There's more information that's going to obviously come out about this as we finally pay off that mortgage. So I'm so excited about that. And I couldn't help but think of it as I was reading this passage this week. I also want to share about another building project that's happening on the other side of the world. And I know I'm becoming the guy who can't shut up about his trip to Africa. But our friends in Malawi at the Sakata Church, which is where our team worshiped the first full day we were there, are also doing a building project. And some of you got to see this project when you went to the AIM presentation a couple weeks ago. In any case, that church that they are building, because they outgrew their old one, it's a dirt floor, and it's close to the size of this sanctuary. Dirt floor, and it's made entirely out of brick. They have windows, but there's no window panes in them. And there's a roof overhead, but it's corrugated steel, and it only covers the church about halfway, because they're still working on that part of their capital campaign. So obviously, this is a very different location, right? And the kids, when they come to sit for the children's moment, they sit on a blanket stretched out on the floor. And you all, instead of sitting in pews, would be sitting in those, those old desks that they had when you were in school that had the desk on it? And you could like fold it up maybe to get in and out. That's what they were sitting at, and some benches too. So very different scenario. And the sermon that we got to hear that day was from a couple book before this one. When David heard this message that Solomon repeated, when David heard the message, "You cannot build this, your son will build." And the message that day was people saying, was the preacher saying to the people, remember what you're building this church for. Remember that this church, this amazing building that you're building, is not yours. It's not something you get to be proud of all on your own. It is a building for God. So don't get too high and mighty about this beautiful church that you're building, because remember that it's God who's doing the work. So be with me for a second in the brick church with a half-finished roof and no windows. Don't get too proud of the building that you're building. Remember who it's for. Remember who it's for. God sends a similar reminder to Solomon in the middle of Solomon's own building campaign. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 11. It says, "The word of the Lord came to Solomon, concerning this house that you are building. If you will walk in my statutes, obey my ordinances, and keep all my commandments by walking in them, then I will establish my promise with you that I made to your father David. I will dwell among the Israelites and will not forsake my people Israel." So Solomon built the house and finished it. Solomon heard right from God. Let me talk to you about this building that you're building. Let me talk to you about this great temple. And Solomon's getting ready to go, okay, so we need to make this one out of gold, not silver, right? We need more cedars from Lebanon. And God says, don't forget to walk in my ways. Don't forget to follow my paths, and I will fulfill my promise to you. It's not the furniture, it's not the equipment, it's not the spaciousness of the building, but it's all about who is going to live there. Whose home is this? So when I started thinking about what we build homes for, what came to me was NFL players. How many of you know the story of an NFL player who the first thing they did was bought a house for their mom? Yeah, heard that story, right? We've had some Eagles do that. I'm not going to tell you the story of an Eagles player, though. Sorry, this one was too good. Anybody a Packers fan? Don't out yourself. Just get, oh, hi. We're going to tell a Packers story today. So, one of the Packers' new rookies is a guy named Matthew Golden. He's a rookie 2025. And he said, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a house, not for my mom, but for my grandma, because we used to live in my grandma's house. And his grandma lost her house in 2017. And he had hoped with his NFL paycheck to buy it back with his signing bonus. But it had deteriorated to the point where he couldn't, so he bought a brand new house. And he described the feeling of buying a house for his grandma as maybe a little better than getting drafted. He said that his grandma put in as much work as I did and sacrificed a lot to put me into this position. So it's all I can do to give back to her. And I want to let you see the rest of the story for yourself. So we have a video that describes the rest of this. Let's see if we can get that going.
Matthew considers me as his best friend because it was just Matthew and myself for a while. When he decided that football was going to be his life, I always told him, keep God first in everything you do, and all your goals will be achieved.
You know, Grandma's love is just different, I feel like. She put in as much work as I did, and, you know, she sacrificed a lot to put me in this position, so all I can do is give back to her. You know, it was times we didn't have anywhere to stay. It was times we didn't have lights, and, you know, a lot of people would have gave up, my mom and grandma. They didn't, you know, they always made sure I had a ride to practice, and now I'm here. Like, it's a full circle. Been waiting to see mama, you know. You know what that is, right?
Hi, Grandma. Hi, I'm Nimesh. I want to say congratulations. These are yours.
Can I go in?
Super cool.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Okay.
How cool is that? You see how much that means to her? How do you think this story would have hit if it was a story about Matthew buying a house for himself? Wouldn't have hit. It made all the difference who that house was for and why he bought it. He bought it for honor, for respect, for gratitude. There are other NFL players that go one step further. Warrick Dunn, who played for the Buccaneers and Falcons, is famous for working on housing. His mother was murdered in 1993, actually, when he was 18. So he couldn't buy his mom a house. So in 1997, he helped, since 1997 rather, he has worked to help purchase over 200 homes for single mothers. He works with Habitat for Humanity and helps them get down payments to give people a leg up and help break that cycle of poverty. His whole concept is that there should be a way out of poverty for people other than winning an NFL draft and buying a house for your mom that way. And we know from the history of, redlining, where people of color were denied housing based on race and segregated to sections of towns that were often destroyed to build highways or factories. It's made establishing generational wealth difficult. So a player like Warrick Dunn sees a problem that goes deeper than just my mom needs a house and works to solve that. And now he's building houses not just to build houses, but to create space for families and to build generational wealth that breaks the cycle of poverty, solving a far more complex problem. These buildings do the work that God calls us to do. This is why we build a church building, because this is the work of the church, to get at some of these complex issues, to bring good news to people who would just love to hear it, to change lives. Yeah, to erase the systemic effects of poverty and racism, to build and heal relationships, and to offer comfort, to offer hope, to connect people to the wisdom of God, to teach people to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. We do all of this, we build all of these things because this is how we believe. We let God's love have the run of the house. We build all of these things to create the space where we witness and follow God's love. Matthew's grandmother said, if you put God first, you'll achieve all your goals. And the reason that I think that's true is because if you truly put God first, then your goals shift to God's goals. And friends, God's goals will always be fulfilled. Remember that the center of the temple, when Solomon built it, and they put the ark inside, it wasn't, the center of the temple wasn't a pile of money. The center of the temple wasn't an idol. The center of the temple wasn't an amazing statue or some fancy piece of art. The center of the temple was the tablets, and they weren't important as a relic. They were important because of what was written on them, the 10 Commandments, the law that God had given the people. And here's the thing about the teachings, the law of God. They are portable. They can go with us, just like we talked about with the kids. They can come in, they can be in your heart, they can be carried with you wherever you go. So this is where we want to build the house next. We've built this amazing, wonderful house. Now we want to keep building the temple in our hearts. And friends, God gives us incredible materials out of which to build that temple. Let's find those materials. Let's build something with it. And I want to tell you one other thing as you work to build a temple in your heart. God is already there. God is already at home within you. So may you also feel at home with your own heart, with God present there.